Welcome to Chewing the Fat, a WorkForge podcast, your source for bite-sized conversations about the world of food manufacturing staffing, retention, onboarding, training, and career development, featuring operators, industry leaders, and more.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Chewing the Fat, a WorkForge podcast. I am Chris Clark, Senior Marketing Manager with WorkForge, and with me today is a veteran of the food production industry and soon-to-be retiree, Andy Drennan with the Food Processors and Suppliers Association, or FSPA. Andy, first off, congratulations on your upcoming retirement and the journey you'll be taking post-retirement. So, way to go. Hats off to you. I applaud you. And with the limited time that you do have left on the job, really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me today, just to kind of talk about you, the industry, what you've seen, what you expect, and really the whole point that I saw with chatting with you today is someone who's been in the industry for a very long time. There's a lot of wisdom, and as you're leaving the industry and retiring and leaving the area, leaving the country, you're going to be taking a lot of that wisdom and a lot of that knowledge with you. And this is something that happens a lot in this industry. It's going to continue to happen increasingly over and over and over. So I thought, who better than to talk to somebody who's on their way to retire and is a wealth of knowledge. So really, again, Andy, thank you so much for spending your time with us. So kick it off today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your career, what the food manufacturing industry has meant to you, what you've seen, just kind of who is Andy Drennan?
Yeah, and I think we're supposed to limit this to 15 minutes, right, Chris?
Yes.
So yes, I've been working here at the association since 1999. Obviously, I assumed I would be working here for about 3 years, and then I'd move on to the next opportunity because that's the way my career had always gone. Prior to coming to the association, I worked as a currency trader, back office currency trader. I worked for MasterCard fraud. I worked as an editor for a very prominent financial news organization. And my last job before this one, I sold commodity plastics down in Latin America. And what I took from all of those jobs was a very negative view of humanity, if I'm just being honest here. Okay. And so I took this job at the association basically to utilize my skills in Spanish and marketing. And I started off running the international programs for the association. And honestly, every few years, something would come up. There would be a big change here at the association, and I would move into another role, which frankly kept it very interesting. So over the course of my 24 plus years here at the association, I have run membership, I've run our events, I've run our trade show, I've run our international programs. And that's how 3 years turns into 24 plus years. So what I really took from that too, the humanity of it all, meeting members, and not even just the members, meeting the people in the food industry. It's a really good industry with lots of really good people. And they look you in the eye and they offer to help you, and they actually do it. And the first few times, maybe the first year that members were doing that, I'd be thinking, well, what does this guy want? And he didn't want anything. He was just helping. And that's why I stuck around this long. And I'm happy I did. It's a great organization. It's a great industry.
So real quick, for anyone who may not know, give me your elevator pitch. What is the FPSA?
We are the Food Production Solutions Association. So our roots go all the way back to the 1880s, back when manufacturers were making equipment for the food industry. And that's they came together to create a trade show. And that sustained us for quite a long time, up until about 4 years ago, when our organization decided, you know what, we want to grow the show. Let's partner with a true professional organization in Messe, Frankfurt. They took over running the show, and now we were going to just focus on creating programs that provide value to all members of the food industry. So it's not just the equipment manufacturers, but also the food manufacturers, the ingredients manufacturers, and everything in between. So it's all about improving the situation for the food industry, whether it be through equipment, through education, events, networking, you name it. That's what FPSA is all about.
Perfect. And so, like you said, you've held a lot of roles within the organization in your 24 years. What have been some of the biggest changes you've seen in the industry while at FPSA? I mean, obviously, you've experienced ups, highs and lows when it comes to recruitment and retention. You've recruited, technologically, obviously, there have been massive shifts in food production. I know personally, I come from protein. The amount of technology advancement and innovation, at least on the protein side, has just been incredible, and the automation and the AI that comes with it. But what are some of the bigger changes that stick out in your mind?
Chris, I think I would prefer to answer that first as a consumer.
Okay.
I have lived all over the world. I have tasted many different types of foods, and when I would return to the States, I would miss those foods. Over these last 20 years, suddenly any type of ingredient flavorings that gets popular in another part of the world, it doesn't take long before it's here in the United States, and I can find it in the suburbs of Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
As a consumer, I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
That's a big difference over the last 25 years. With regards to the industry, I remember when I started, our organization had a department within it, 3A sanitary standards. And we spun that off in 2001. And they've done great. But that was really the organization that focused, in addition to AMI at the time, meat segment, but 3A really focused on food safety before it was a critical.
It is today. Yeah.
It was critical back then, and 3A understood that. AMI understood that. Now everybody understands that, and that, once again, as a consumer, I'm very happy to hear.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like you say that and I don't know if food safety. Would you say just in the food safety realm, it's gotten better because we've gotten more knowledgeable with the really true globalization of the industry, whether it be protein or whatever it is, just food in general. Through the globalization, we've become more knowledgeable, and we've really these processors, these producers, these manufacturers, they've been able to really be laser focused on the food safety and the quality of the product that they make, just because of the technology and the globalization of the industry.
And even more important than that, Chris, the food manufacturers that have issues. I was just reading the news yesterday, and I was reading about a few recalls. No one's trying to hide it anymore, which is a good thing. There's much more transparency than there was back in the days with the peanut butter. And I think the industry has a much better awareness of the importance of recalls and safety, and you just don't want to get into trouble like that. So it's in the forefront of production. How do we feed a hungry world, but how do we do it safely?
How do we do it safely? Exactly. So, I mean, with the FPSA membership, what are some of the trends that your members are kind of watching, or what are you hearing from them when they say, hey, we need help. Hey, we've got questions. Can you point us in the right direction? The members that you work with every day, every week, every month, every year, what are some of the trends you've been seeing, I would say, over the last year, last 5 years, could even be the last week?
It's all about workforce, to be honest. It's all about workforce. A lot of the food manufacturers, the margins in the food industry are not the greatest.
No, they're not.
And so a lot of manufacturers, in order to maintain or perhaps strengthen their margins somewhat, it took a lot of the talent and laid them off. And yet the need was still there. So who can do this work? Well, a lot of the OEMs picked up that talent, and they now work on the supplier side. So the work is still getting done, but now it's mostly the suppliers that are providing a lot of that engineering help in the And because of that, it is, especially over the last few years, it is so important that the supplier and the food manufacturer work hand in hand. It's not I'm going to sell you this equipment and then you go produce. No, those days are long gone. It's got to be more of a partnership between the suppliers and the food manufacturers.
That's a great point. And I know in my past, we would have, robotics, we would have just different sorts of machinery, and very, a lot of it was kind of proprietary towards us. And those OEMs that we used in our plant, and it was a large plant in our plant, these were massive global OEMs, but it was a true partnership. It wasn't thanks for the check, here's your machine, see you later. They really, it was a partnership in kind of every way. Here's what we can do to improve the performance of this machine on your specific line. Here are some updates that we have coming. Here's a flaw that we've noticed in other plants that have similar things. So it was very unique to see that when I was in the plant, that these OEMs, it's not just a sale and see ya. They really do. They want to be your partner. And I know with the FPSA, OEMs make up a large part of your membership.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. So that's it's encouraging to see that the OEMs and those processors or those producers, like you say, are kind of hand in hand and being partners in that. So now, interesting.
One other area where that is also true is in the workforce development for the training, the technical maintenance. We're seeing it in spades in terms of food manufacturers and the OEMs. A lot of that talent has retired. They've moved on. And, this next generation, how do we, inform them about the opportunities in the food industry? We're working very hard. FPSA created the Food Industry Technician Program 4 years ago, and it's doing great. In fact, with FIT, we could triple the size of our classes if possible. We still would not be scratching the surface of the need for food industry technicians, because it's not just the food industry; it's all industry in this country.
It's all industry.
Everyone is scratching for that next generation.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned the training as well, because I was obviously going to bring that up. What kind of advice, as you're looking at, you said it's always workforce, and when in my time it was always workforce. Then, what would you tell millennials or Gen Zers? This is why you should work in food manufacturing. This is why food manufacturing is a viable and legitimate career, because manufacturing has kind of been deemed a bad word within those generations. So what would you say, in your grand knowledge, your grand wisdom, what would you say? This is why it's a good career path. This is why this is where you should go.
Chris, I don't even have to think about that, because I have two Gen Z sons that I've been guiding. One is a musician, and one...
Sorry for your luck.
One wants to be a computer game, a game programmer.
Yep.
And my advice to them has been, just think about this. We have to eat. Okay, that's always going to be true. After I'm long and gone, that's still going to be true. These food companies are still going to be making product. I'm not saying that our industry is recession proof, but it is as close as possible, as far as any other industry that I know of, to being recession proof. The pay is better than average. And it's just, I understand wanting to live your life and go out and do different things. You're not working to live. You're not living to work. You work to live.
Yeah.
That's very possible in this industry because of the need for that next generation. So there's lots of opportunities. I know of some people that have been hired into the food companies, and they're good technical employees, and within the space of 6 months, they're already promoted up into another area because there's that need. And so these companies recognize good talent, and they are willing to pay for it, and they're willing to incentivize it.
Yeah, I would agree with it. We would say that a lot. Regardless of what the economy does, regardless of whatever happens externally, globally, environmentally, people still need to eat.
Yeah.
And While demand trends may go up and down, people might eat less chicken or more pork or less bananas, but more lettuce. Regardless, everyone needs food, and it really, again, recession proof. I would say recession proof, but it is real close.
Yes.
Well, you mentioned your two sons that you're coaching and guiding. What advice would you have for the future leaders of this industry? Because we're looking at people like your sons who, if they come in the industry, and as you just said, they're in 6 months, they get bumped up to a new role or a new department. It's very easy to advance in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you have for these newcomers who very likely are going to be running production floors in the future?
I would say, no matter what, do not think you know everything. Okay. And I say that firsthand experience. Every trade show, every conference that I go to, now mind you, my background is in languages and in marketing. So I did not study food science. So I go to these events 25 years now, and I am learning so many different things every time. So keeping abreast of these changes that are happening makes you more valuable. One other thing I would say, do not discount the importance of networking. Getting to know people in the industry, be it at competing companies, be it at other industries completely, other segments rather, and the OEMs. There are so many people, like I said, good people that are willing to help each other. That network here is so strong in this industry. I can't say enough about it. And I don't know that Gen Z understands that, because, they've grown up with, the tools at their hand, and so often, having that conversation with someone, that's a step beyond what some are used to. Not all. I don't mean to paint a broad brush like this.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's good. I was going to ask, what are you most excited about? What are you most concerned about with the future? Talking about the future, but I think you kind of just answered that as well. Like, the generational shift. I think that's something that on the producer, OEM, manufacturer side, they're going to need to recognize there's a generational shift. The paradigm is changing. The motivations have changed for this new generation. So we're going to have to shift as well. But to your point, these newcomers need to come on and realize you don't know everything. And it's going to be a large shift in just the learning curve itself. And, one of the things that WorkForge does, and Andy, very well, we always want to try to capture the institutional knowledge of the folks who have been around for a long time, who know the inner workings of this machine, of this line, of this plant, of this company, and be able to help trickle that down to the next generation leaders, which is something that we have noticed. And I know you, as we've discussed many times, that's a very real situation, a very real thing that's happening. It's going to continue to happen, for many, many years to come. So do you feel like this generational shift is a threat to the industry, or is a threat to the employers?
No, in fact, I view it quite the opposite. I view it as a tremendous opportunity. It has been my pleasure to work with some of the young professionals in the membership, also some of our staff here, and to recognize that they can do a lot of technical tasks much quicker than I can. So it's fascinating the way that they look at some of these issues that we deal with, and that just their perspective is actually an advantage for us. It's just a matter of, us, the upper management in the industry, to coordinate better with our young professionals, because I think working together, I see the industry just getting stronger, just getting faster, just getting more efficient, and I'm very proud of that.
Excellent. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I just personally, you've got a few more weeks left before you are done, and what are you going to miss the most?
What am I going to miss the most? The relationships. I have to be honest. Like I said, when I came to this job, I did not have the highest view on humanity, and now I'm walking away from it. In fact, I wouldn't say I'm walking away from it, because I'm still going to be working with FPSA on our production line program for the trade show. So I will still get to utilize those relationships and enjoy the people that I've come to know over these 25 years. It's been a pleasure. That's what I am most going to miss, that I don't get to deal with them on a daily basis, but somehow I'll get by.
Knowing the direction you're headed, I think you're going to get by just fine.
I think so.
Well, man, Andy, I really thank you so much for joining today. It's been really great stuff. Just, we want to try to get as much information as we can before you leave and before you venture on to the next great thing. Appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for your time today. And for anyone else out there, if you would like to hear more, go to workforge.com blog for more information on all things training, food, the FPSA. It's all there. So again, as always, thank you for joining Chewing the Fat with WorkForge. And until next time, keep forging ahead.
Thank you for joining this episode of Chewing the Fat, a WorkForge podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit workforge.com to learn more and sign up for more food manufacturing resources at workforge.com/blog.